Living alone in old age can feel like entering a new chapter of life, one filled with both quiet reflection and unique challenges. But more than anything, it's a time that can be empowering and deeply enriching. As someone who has embraced this stage of life, I understand how living alone shapes you, often in ways you might not expect. I've seen conversations across forums where many people share their experiences. Based on those voices, here's what living alone often makes us do as we grow older and how these changes can add more depth and meaning to our lives. Number 1. Reconnecting with ourselves. One of the most powerful things I've observed is how living alone allows us to reconnect with our inner selves. Many people mention how the absence of constant distractions lets them rediscover who they are at their core. Take Margaret, a 65-year-old woman who shared her story on a Reddit thread. After her husband passed away, she moved into a small apartment, unsure of what the future held. For the first time in years, she had no one to cater to, no one to share the daily routines with. At first, she said, the silence felt overwhelming, but slowly, Margaret found herself rediscovering things she used to love, like gardening. She started small, with a few pots of herbs on her windowsill. Now she jokes that she's become the crazy plant lady with an entire balcony filled with greenery. Margaret's journey of reconnecting with herself didn't happen overnight, but she learned that being alone doesn't have to mean feeling lonely. It can be about rediscovering your passions and filling your time with things that bring you joy. When she sits down with a cup of tea and looks at her plants, she feels a sense of peace that had been missing for years. 2. Developing new routines and rituals. Living alone requires us to create a daily structure that fits our needs, and this often leads to new routines or rituals. Many people have shared how they've developed morning rituals that are completely their own, whether it's enjoying a cup of tea while watching the sunrise, practicing yoga, or simply sitting in silence to plan the day. John, a retired engineer, shared a comment in an online video about how living alone changed the way he structured his days. After decades of waking up at 5 a.m. for work, he finally allowed himself the luxury of sleeping in. Now his mornings are slow and deliberate. He enjoys his coffee while reading the newspaper, something he never had time for before. He even started a new tradition, taking a 20-minute walk around his neighborhood every afternoon. He mentioned that his new routine gave his days a sense of rhythm and purpose. John said something that really struck me. When you live alone, your time is your own. You're not rushing for anyone. You can build your day exactly the way you like, and there's something truly satisfying about that. 3. Becoming more self-reliant. Living alone encourages self-reliance in ways that are both practical and emotional. You're the one responsible for managing every part of your life, from grocery shopping to home maintenance and making health decisions. For many, this can be daunting, but it also brings an incredible sense of accomplishment. 4. Rediscovering old hobbies and exploring new interests. One of the unexpected gifts of living alone is the freedom to indulge in hobbies, both old ones you may have left behind and new ones you've never had the chance to try. Whether it's dusting off the paintbrushes or learning to play the piano, living alone gives you the time and space to dive into what genuinely excites you. 5. Building stronger connections with others on your own terms. Living alone doesn't mean isolation. It's far from it. In fact, many people find that living alone makes their social interactions more meaningful because they have the energy and space to choose who they spend their time with. You start reaching out to people who genuinely enrich your life, and this leads to deeper, more fulfilling relationships. 7. Creating a space that reflects you. When you live alone, your home becomes an extension of who you are. Many people have shared how they've used this opportunity to create a living space that feels uniquely theirs. Whether it's decorating in a way that truly speaks to you, or reorganizing your furniture to maximize comfort and practicality, living alone gives you the freedom to design your environment exactly how you like. 9. Taking charge of health and well-being. Living alone encourages a proactive approach to health, both mental and physical. George, a 69-year-old who shared his story on a health-focused forum, explained that after he started living alone, he realized he was solely responsible for his own well-being. Without anyone to remind him to stay active or eat well, he knew he had to take control. George began walking every morning, even if it was just around the block. Over time, he added more distance and eventually joined a local walking group. Now, not only does he feel fitter, but he's also made new friends. Monica, in her early 70s, found that living alone gave her the push to address her mental health. She shared in a forum that after years of putting herself last, behind work, family, and caregiving, she finally had the time to focus on her emotional well-being. Monica began seeing a therapist and practicing meditation. For the first time in decades, she was prioritizing her own mental health, and she noticed a marked improvement in her mood and outlook. Living alone helped her realize that self-care is not selfish. It's essential. 10. Embracing creativity in cooking and meals. Without the obligation to cook for others, living alone offers the freedom to experiment in the kitchen. Many older adults have shared that they found joy in cooking for themselves, treating it as a creative outlet rather than a chore. Susan, a woman in her mid-60s, shared how she started trying new recipes after moving into her own place. With no one else's preferences to cater to, she began experimenting with different cuisines, ingredients, and flavors that she'd never tried before. Now cooking is one of her favorite activities, and she looks forward to planning new meals each week. Similarly, Frank, a 72-year-old widower, took a different approach. He shared that living alone allowed him to simplify his meals. He created a weekly menu with easy-to-make, nutritious dishes and stuck to it. Frank said this routine gave him peace of mind, knowing he was eating well without the hassle of planning elaborate meals every day. What he once viewed as a necessity has become a comforting routine, something he looks forward to at the end of each day. Living alone in old age isn't about solitude. It's about freedom. It's about rediscovering what makes you, you. It gives you the space to grow, learn, and thrive at your own pace.